How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Tes, Daf 9 of Masechta Makos. Friends, okay, today we're going to finish up the Mishnah that we learned yesterday, that we were in the middle of, and then, like in the middle of the Gemara for, then we're going to learn another Mishnah and its Gemara, and I think we'll probably do one more Mishnah before calling it a day. I suspect that this one won't be that long. It looked like yesterday's daf ended up being like over an hour, I think. So I guess that was a long one, but I think this one isn't going to be that long. Okay, here we go. So we are on daf Tes. Right, we're learning daf Tes of Masechta Makos. We're on daf Tes Amud Aleph, 3 lines into the page. Daf Tes Amud Aleph, 3 lines into the page. There's 2 dots. Chutz me'al yidei ger teishav v'chulei. So the Mishnah had said that a yid does not go into exile for the inadvertent murder of a ger toshav. Now, ger toshav is a Gentile, is a Nochri, who accepts upon themselves the 7 Noahide laws that we learned about in Masechta Sanhedrin. So Alma ger toshav oved kechavim hu. So if a yid is not exiled for the inadvertent murder of killing of a ger toshav, so Mimele, he's not a yid, because if he's a yid, then you go to your miklat. But Ema Seifa, but then we talk about ger toshav gole al yedei ger toshav. But then the Mishnah says that a ger toshav goes to, if a ger toshav kills a ger toshav, he goes to an ir miklat. Why is a ger toshav going to an ir miklat if he's an oved kacham? So like, what's the dealio? Amar of Kahana says of Kahana lo kasha, no problem. Kan beger toshav shaharag ger toshav, kan beger toshav shaharag Yisrael. So when a ger toshav kills a Yisrael, so basically when there is a deathly interaction between a ger toshav and a Yisrael, whether it's a Yisrael who kills a ger toshav or fakert, there is no ir miklat. So if a yid kills a ger toshav, the yid would not need to go to an ir miklat. If a ger toshav kills a yid, he would not be able to go to an ir miklat. He would be chayev misa, right? Shev mitzvahs b'nei noach. Don't kill, and there would be a chiyuv misa, right? So if it's a ger toshav that kills a ger toshav, and we're going to kind of like flesh this out on this amud. It's a little bit of a kind of stringy kind of amud. But anyways, a ger toshav who kills a ger toshav would go to an ir miklat. But if there is a deathly interaction between a ger toshav and a yid, there is no ir miklat. If the yid kills the ger toshav, he doesn't need to go to an ir miklat. If the ger toshav kills the yid, he is not able to go to a ir miklat. Fine. There are those who get to the same conclusion with Rav Kahana, but instead of kind of asking it as like a question, they do it based on psukim, but arrive at the same conclusion. Here we go. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Livnei Yisrael vila ger vila toshav shebetocham tiena sheish ha'orim. Right. So one pasuk talks about, in the context of ir miklat, talks about vila ger vila toshav. Right. So I assume a ger is a proselyte, but toshav is probably a ger toshav. Right. So one pasuk by ir miklat seems to include a ger toshav, uchsiv, but another pasuk says vayulachem ha'arim lemiklat. That is for you, yidden, these ir miklats. Lachem v'lo legerim. It's for you. It's not for ger toshavs. What's the deal? Is it or isn't it? Right? Are they the ari miklat, or are they not for ger toshavs? Rav Kahana, and now here comes Rav Kahana to say, like he said earlier in the first version, lo kasha, it is no contradiction, it's no problem. Kan beger toshav sharag Yisrael, kan beger toshav sharag ger toshav. Right. So if it's if a ger toshav kills a ger toshav, then they would go to an ir miklat. But by a deathly interaction between a ger toshav and a yid would not result in any ir miklating. Okay. V'ra minhi, but we have a question. What's the question? The fichach. Therefore, in the context of sheva mitzvahs b'nei noach, ger v'ovid kochavim shehargu, that a ger and oved kochavim that kill nehe rogin, they are killed. There's no ir miklat. There's capital punishment for murder when it comes to ger toshav and oved kochavim. Katani ger dumid oved kochavim. It says lefichach. I'm just backing up a line. Lefichach ger ve'oved kochavim shagun erogun. So katani ger dumid oved kochavim. We are comparing be'etzim a ger, juxtaposing and comparing a ger with an oved kochavim. Ma oved kochavim. Just like when it comes to an oved kochavim, loy shna de katol bar mine. It doesn't matter if the oved kochavim killed another oved kochavim. Velo shna de katol de lav bar mine. Nor does it matter if the oved kochavim kills a yid. Either way, neherog. Even if he kills one of his own, neherog. Af ger, also a ger toshav, lo shna. There's no difference. De katol bar mine. If he kills another ger toshav, velo shna katol de lav bar mine. Neherag. Nor does it matter if he kills a yid. Either way, neherag. So here we have a brisa saying that a ger toshav that kills a ger toshav is neherag. Doesn't matter if he kills a ger toshav or a yid. Neherag. He's killed. But we had just said that a ger toshav that kills a ger toshav goes to an ir miklat. Omer of Chizde. So it says of Chizde, lo kasha. It's no question. Kan shehargo derech yirida, kan shehargo derech aliyah. So it depends. When a ger toshav kills another ger toshav, did he kill the ger toshav derech yirida or derech aliyah? Right? We of course know that by yidden, right? By yidden, the halach is by ir miklat, right? As we learned in the first mishnah of this perek, is that derech yirida, right? By apel olav vayomus, right? That derech yirida is chayiv, right? It goes to an ir miklat. Derech aliyah does not go to an ir miklat. So just like there is this distinction between yidden, so there is the same distinction when it comes to an ovid, when it comes to a ger toshav killing another ger toshav. Where are we? So I'm going to read that again. Amar of Chizla kasha kan shargo derech yirida kan shargo derech aliyah derech yirida. So when a ger toshav kills a ger toshav derech yirida, the Yisrael gali, that by yidden they go to an ir miklat. So iunami sagile begalus, he can also go to galus, and that will suffice. And and then he will get atoned. Derech aliyah. However, when we're talking about derech aliyah, the Yisrael potter, where Yisrael does not have to go to an ir miklat if it's derech aliyah, if it's on the way up, hu nerab. So in that case, the ger toshav, if it was derech aliyah, he kills another ger toshav, would not go to a ir miklat and instead would be killed. Amalei Rava, but Rava says to Rav Chizda, wait, that doesn't make sense. Meaning we're saying that derech yirida, where a yid goes to an ir miklat, so a ger toshav also goes to an ir miklat. When it comes to derech aliyah, which seems to be a more lenient case, and therefore a yid does not need to go to an ir miklat, it makes no sense to say that a ger toshav, because a ger toshav derech aliyah, which seems to be a more lenient case, we would deal with him more strictly and saying he cannot go to an ir miklat, instead we're going to kill him? Right? Amalei Rava says to Rav Chizde, V'lav kal v'chomer, isn't it a kal v'chomer? Isn't it logical? Uma derech yirida. If we're saying that derech yirida, the Yisrael gali, that a yid kills a yid derech yirida, he goes to an ir miklat, iunami sagile begalus, and we're saying, okay, fine, so ger toshav, another ger toshav can also go to ir miklat, and that's fine. Now derech aliyah, now on the way up, the Yisrael potter, that if a yid kills another yid derech aliyah, he doesn't even have to go. It's more lenient. He doesn't have to go to ir miklat. Well, if it's a more lenient case, then how does this make any sense? That when it comes to a ger toshav, ihu nerag, we're going to deal with him more stringently. A ger toshav kills a ger toshav, derech aliyah, he's going to be killed? That makes no sense, argues Rava. Ella, Amar Rava. Rather, says Rava, what is the case where a ger toshav who kills a ger toshav would be chayiv misa, would be killed? Be'omer mutter. It's when he thinks that killing is permitted. He doesn't realize that it's not allowed. Well, that is karev lemezid according to Rava, and he would be killed for that. Abaye argues with Rava like he did the other day. Omer mutter onusu. What do you mean? Omer mutter is onus. He would not have to go. He would not be killed. It's onus. So Amalei, so Rava answers, Shani Omer Mutter Karev Lemezidu. The Rava says, yeah, but I treat Omer Mutter as Karev Lemezid, as negligent, grossly negligent, and therefore he would be Chayiv Misa for that. And Rav Chizde, who does not say that it's talking about Omer Mutter, he says that it's talking about Derech Aliyah, and Rava, who says that it's talking about Omer Mutter, they go according to their reasonings that Rav Chizda says Omer Mutter, like Abaye says, is onus, whereas Rava says that Omer Mutter is Karev Lemezid. The Itmar, that it was stated Kesover Behema V'nimtza Adam, if a Gertoshav thought that he was killing an animal and then he killed a person. Kenaini V'nimtza Gertoshav, or he thought he was killing a Kenaini, but it turns out that he killed a Ger Toshav. Rava Omer Chayav, Rava says that he's Chayav because that's be'etzem a situation of Omer Mutter, right? Just like Omer Mutter was saying, well, you should have learned. Here also, you should have paid better attention. Because Omer Mutter Karev Lemezidu, because we treat Omer Mutter as essentially on purpose. Rav Chizda Omar Potter, whereas Rav Chizda says that he would be Potter because Omer Mutter Onusu, because Omer Mutter is considered onus, and he would be Potter. Ezvei Rava Rav Chizda. Now Rava asked Rav Chizda, asked the Kashan of Chizda. Rava is now arguing that Omer Mutter is Chayev. Hincho meis aloisha shelo kachto, that when Avimelech takes Sorry, okay, and then the Rabbeinu Shalom comes to Avimelech in a dream at night, and he says, Hin chomeis aloisha shelakachta, you are going to die because you took Sorry. Now he was Omer Mutter. He says, what did I do? He said it was his sister. What, Omer Mutter? What did I do? And the Rabbeinu Shalom says, Hin chomeis aloisha shelakachta, you're going to die because of this woman that you took. My love, bidei adam. And Rava argues, we're talking about bidei adam because Omer Mutter is chayiv misa. Lo bidei shamayim, no, I'll argue that you're going to die bidei shamayim, tekanami dechsev mechato li. The Rabbeinu Shalom says that you're going to sin to me. Perfectly Gemara, that's not such a good proof, because the time v'chatosi lelokim, when Yosef HaTzadik says, I can't sleep with Eishes Potiphar, I will be sinning to God. Lelokim v'lo adam, what? It's just Eishes Ish, it's sinning, Arias, it's sinning with God, but not, between people. Eladino masal adam, hachanami dino masal adam. Just like by Arias, it's people can kill you. So also here, I would argue that people can kill, that Avimelech would have been able to be killed, and Rava would argue Omer Mutter is Chayiv. Eisvei Abai l'Rava, but now Abai asks the Kasha and Rava, Hagoygam Tzadik Tarog, that Avimelech argues, what, are you going to even kill innocent people? But he said it was his sister. So Abai argues, you see, and Abai wants to argue that Rabbeinu Shalom accepted his argument that he's ones. No. Hosam kedu kamahadre le ilove. It's like the Rabbeinu Shalom responds to Avimelech. Ve'ato hoshev eishes ha'ish, return Sarah back to Abraham. Kinoviu, because Abraham is a prophet. Eishes noviu tehader delav novi lo tehader. What? Avimelech needs to return Sarah to Abraham because he's a prophet. What if he wasn't a prophet? He wouldn't have to return her? What do you mean? It's an Eishes Ish. She's an Eishes Ish. Elo Kedomer of Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani. It's like Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani says, in explanation of the prophet thing, Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani, Reb Yonis and Achi Ka'amar, that this is what the Rabbeinu Shalom is saying to Avimelech. Ve'ata, and now, Hoshev Eishes Ha'ish, Mikol Makom, return Sarah to her husband, because she's an Eishes Ish, Nikuda. She needs to be returned to her husband. V'deka Amart, Hagogam Tzadik Ta'aroig. And you said, but I'm innocent. Why are you going to kill me? You're not so innocent. Halahu Amarli. Achosi v'gomer. Avimelech says, what he said, it's she's his sister. Novihu, the Rabbeinu Shalom says he's a prophet, i.e., he has intuition. Umimcha lomad, and he was able to learn from the way that you sort of responded, because so normally, a person comes to the city, what you ask the person is, hey, can I get you something to eat? You have a place to eat? You have a place to drink? What is this that you say? Oh, is this your wife? Is your sister? Can I have her? No. So Avram intuited that basically he would be dangerous for him to say that it's his wife, right? Because you would kill him. So therefore, Avram Avinu had, you're saying, oh, I was innocent. Avram Avinu had intuition. He realized who he was dealing with over here. Mikan shebenayach nerag she'lo lumod velo lamed, and we see from here that a ben Noach would be killed because he should, right, for what's it called? What's the case that we're talking? Oh, by Omer Mutter. So we see that he would be killed by Omer Mutter because he should have learned. Okay, fine. Says, all right, now next Mishnah. Hasuma eno gole divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that a blind person does not go to an ear. I assume it means does not have to go to an ear miklat. Rabbi Meir Omer gole. Rabbi Meir says blind people do go to ear miklats. Hasone eno gole. If somebody kills somebody who hates, so if Geva hates Itamar and then he kills Itamar, so then Geva cannot go to an ear miklat. Rabbi Yossi Omer Hasone nerag. Rabbi Yossi takes it one step further and says, if Geva hates Itamar and then kills Itamar, we will kill Geva. Because he's basically warned, right? Meaning, if Geva hates Itamar, the assumption is if he killed him, it's because he intended to kill him. Rabbi Shimon says, Yesh sonei golev, yesh sonei she'eno golev. Rabbi Shimon says, look, there are scenarios where a hater can be exiled. There are other scenarios where a hater is not exiled. This is the general rule. If you could make the argument that Geva, who hates Itamar, killed Itamar intentionally, okay, he cannot go to the ear miklat v'shelo ladas harag. But if you could plausibly argue that it was unintentional, then he can go to the city of refuge. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught below re'os prat l'sumat Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says when the pasuk says below re'os that Geva and Itamar are chopping wood, and right, I think it's talking about the case of the chopping wood, right? Obuchol even asher yamos bo below re'os v'yapel alav v'yamos v'lo oyev lov lamvakish also. Okay, so it says in the context of inadvertent killing below re'os that he didn't see him. Meaning implying that he's a person who is able to see, he just didn't see him. Okay? So to the exclusion of a blind person who can't see at all. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Meir says, below re'os lirabos, it's a summa. Rabbi Meir, and we're going to see more in a second, Rabbi Meir says that actually below re'os is actually coming to include a blind person. My time to Rabbi Yehuda. How come Rabbi Yehuda says his opinion? The Pasuk says, V'asher yavos re'er bayar, that when the pasuk says that when they go into a forest, so anybody who goes into a forest, afilu summa, even a blind person, but also below re'os, when the pasuk says that and he doesn't see him, ma'ate, that implies that he just can't see him, but he could see in general. And now we're saying it's not just anybody, but blind people are excluded. For Reb Meir, whereas Reb Meir says below re'os lima'et. The Meir says, below re'os is a mi'ut, right, excluding a blind person. Bivli da'as lima'et, but also when the pasuk says in the context of ir miklat, bivli da'as, without knowledge, that's also coming to exclude a blind person. Lima'et, that's another mi'ut. Ave mi'ut achar mi'ut, that's a double mi'ut. Ve mi'ut achar mi'ut ela lirabos, and double mi'uts, double negative is actually a positive. A double mi'ut actually comes to include, and it is including a blind person by ear miklat. Rabbi Yehuda bivli da'as prat l'miskabenu das. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda argues that bivli da'as is not coming to exclude a blind person, Rather, bivli das is coming to exclude kavana, somebody who kills intentionally. Rabbi Yossi Omer hasoine nerog chule. So the Mishnah had said that Rabbi Yossi says that if Geva hates Itamar and then kills Itamar, we will kill Geva. Veha lo asru bei. But how could we kill Geva? They didn't warn Geva. We're saying we're just killing him because he hates Itamar. He wasn't warned. So Mastis and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Well, this Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer chaver eno tzarich hasroya. That a Talmud Chacham does not. You don't you don't need to warn a Talmud Chacham. Because the point of warning is just to differentiate between inadvertent and advertent, between a shogeg and a mazid. So to just be sure that he has intent to do what he's doing, to kill in this case, so we warn him. A Talmud Chacham doesn't need to be warned because he knows it. And guess what? Somebody who hates another person also doesn't need to be warned because he knows that he's doing it out of hate. And therefore it's chayiv misa. Reb Shimon Omer yesh sonei gola v'chule. Reb Shimon says, well, it depends. There are scenarios where a sonei could be exiled. There are scenarios where a sonei cannot be exiled. Tanya, we learn in the Brisa, Ketzad. How so? Reb Shimon says, I think maybe it's, you read it all together. Ketzad Reb Shimon yesh sonei gola ve'yesh sonei she'eino gola. How does Reb Shimon say that sometimes a sonei is gola, sometimes he is not? So nifsak gola nishmat in a gola. Well, let's say he's like, I don't know, holding a barrel at the end of a rope and dangling it. Geva, who hates Itamar, is dangling a barrel over Itamar's head, and the rope splits, breaks. Well, then Geva could say, oh wow, wait, I actually didn't mean to kill him, the rope broke. But if the rope, slipped out of Geva's hands, then it's like, all right, Geva, you're not convincing anybody, you killed Itamar, you cannot go to a city of refuge. But 1 second, we learn in a Brisa, Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon le'olam eino gola ad sheyishamit machzolam yodu. Reb Shimon says that he is exiled when it slips out of his hand. Right? The machzalo is that roller that we're talking about over here. He uses a different word, a trowel. But I think we're talking about the same thing. I think that was the word I was looking for the other day. Anyways, so here Reb Shimon is saying that he goes to Nir Miklat when it slips out of his hand. So kafsha nifsak kasha nishmat. So now those are both questions, because we had initially said if it splits, so then he would go to an ir anidachas, right? If the rope breaks, he would go to an ir anidachas. But now we're saying, no, if it slips, he goes to an ir anidachas. If it breaks, he wouldn't have to go to an ir anidachas. And in the first place, we said if it slips, he doesn't go to an ir anidachas. Now we're saying if it slips, he does go to an ir anidachas. So what's the deal? So now for the next line, you have to Rashi kind of switches some words around. So I'm going to switch those words around. Nishmat and nishmat lo kasha. When it slips, it's no question. It depends. Does Geva love Itamar or does he hate Itamar? If he loves Itamar, well then he will go to an ir miklat. If he hates Itamar, he will not go to an ir miklat. And nifsak lo kasha. When the rope breaks, it is no problem. Ha Rebbe ha Rabbanon. That, well, one is according to Rebbe, one is according to our rabbis, right? This was, we saw, I believe it was yesterday we learned, right? We're talking about the blade of the axe flying off of the handle of the axe, or we're talking about a wood chip flying out of the tree. So this case of the rope splitting would be like the blade of the axe flying off of the handle. So the Rabbanan would say that he goes to an ir miklat, and Rebbe would say that he would not. Azoy. We're going to learn one more Mishnah, and then I think we're going to call it a day, and we'll start from the Gemara tomorrow. Says the Mishnah, Lehechan Golin, where are people exiled to? La'ari miklat, to cities of refuge. They're exiled to cities of refuge. L'shalosh shebe'ever Yarden, v'la'shalosh shebe'eretz Canaan. There are 3 cities of refuge in Transjordan, and there are 3 in Eretz Yisrael. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, as shalosh ha'arim titnu me'evar le'Yarden. The pasuk says 3 of these cities shall be in Transjordan. Ve'as shalosh ha'arim titnu be'eretz Canaan v'gomer, and 3 of them should be in Eretz Yisrael. Ad shalei nivcharu shalosh be'eretz Yisrael, and until Yoshua established the 3 Ari Miklat in Eretz Yisrael, after the 14 years, 7 years of battle and 7 years of dividing up the land, only after those 14 years were the 3 cities of refuge in Eretz Yisrael established, and only at that point did any of the 6 become functional. Even the 3 that Moshe had established in Eber HaYarden were not functional until all 6 were established, until the 3 in Eretz Yisrael were established after 14 years after the Yidden went into Eretz Yisrael. Where am I? So until the 3 in Eretz Yisrael were established, the 3 in Transjordan were not functional. Shenemar sheish Ari Miklat tiyena. There are 6 Ari Miklat ad sheyiu sheshton kotos ka'achas. All of them have to be operational simultaneously, and therefore, they all, until the 3 in Eretz Yisrael were established, the 3 in Transjordan were not functional. And they would they made roads between the Ari Miklat. Right, prepare the ways. And they would appoint 2 Talmidei Chacham. So basically, if Geva inadvertently kills Itamar, so when Geva is running to the Ir Miklat, to the city of refuge, that's what it's called, right? The Ir Miklat, that's what I keep on calling it. So he would go with 2 Talmidei Chachamim. Shema Yargenu Baderech, so that if Itamar's redeemers of his blood want to kill Geva, so the Talmidei Chachamim will try to talk the Goel Adam out of it. By Dabru Elav, Shema Yargenu Baderech, Vidabru Elav, they will be able to try and talk the Goel Adam out of it. Reb Meir Omer says, Reb Meir, Hu Medaber Ayidei Atzmo. Reb Meir says that actually the Geva will speak for himself. Shenemar v'zed dvar, I would say, these are the words of the killer. He will speak for himself. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda Omer batchila. What they do is that at first, echad shogeg v'echad mezid, regardless of if Geva killed Itamar intentionally or not, or accidentally, magdimin la'ari miklat. No matter what the case is, you start off by Geva goes to the Ir Miklat. Uvezdin shochan uvein os misham, and then Bezdin will extract Geva from the Ir Miklat that he ran to, and then they would take him to court. And Mishnah Chayiv Misa bebezdin, if they found that he was Chayiv Misa, hargu, they would kill him. Vishalon is Chayiv Misa, if he was not Chayiv Misa, Ptarus, then he would not be Chayiv Misa. Now Mishnah Chayiv Galus, if it was determined that he needs to be exiled in Ir Miklat, Machzirin also limkomo, so they would return him to his Ir Miklat. Shenem ve'eshivo also ha'eda el Ir Miklato v'gomer, that the congregation returns him to his Ir Miklat. Cheved, that was daf 9 of Masechta Makos. We learned a little bit about ger toshavs and different scenarios where they would or would not be exiled, and then we learned about blind people, machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, about if blind people are exiled, and then we started learning a bit about how these Ir Miklats kind of work and are set up. And tomorrow is going to be the next 2 days, I believe, are actually going to be kind of a Agadati. So we just finished Perek Chelek, and now we had about a week and a half away from Agadata. Now a little bit of Agadata, just so we can have a little bit of that taste still. Peace out.